Hey everyone, in this video we're going to take a look at the second story of chapter 24 from the Road to Latin textbook called De Caesare et Legionibus. Now, like I always tell you in these videos, if you want to see the story in a different way or maybe get some grammar help or vocab help, whatever you need, feel free to take a look at Nova Latin. This is my website where you can find my textbook that I use in class with a bunch of different resources to help you understand the story and maybe just see it in a different way, something that might help you out. So feel free to check it out. Before we dive in, though, like I always tell you, you want to make sure. I know this is the second story of chapter 24, so you're probably in a good place, but just make sure you have the vocab really down. It's very difficult to read these stories if you don't know what the words mean. It kind of puts you at a disadvantage from the start. So, at the very least, make sure you have the vocab down. You probably should feel pretty good about the grammar at this point, third declension nouns, but if you need to brush up, feel free to look it up. And again, my textbook will help you with that. But you want to make sure you have the vocab, the grammar down, so that when you read this story, you're seeing the grammar and the new words in context, and you're not just memorizing them off a sheet of paper, right? You want to see them in an actual story. The next thing you got to do is find someone from class, whoever you can, read the story out loud to them, practice your speaking, your pronunciation, and then have them read it back to you so you can practice your listening skills. These are all really important for learning how to actually read Latin and not just translate it in your head. You want to remember it is a language. You should be speaking it, right? You can speak it, and it's fun, right? Bring it to life. But it's also to help you learn. Your brain is wired to hear things, right? That auditory learning, you never want to shut it off because you never know if that'll kind of unlock it for you and really help you out. So that would be my advice. But once you're in that place and you feel really comfortable, you want to read through the story and translate it. And as long as your translation and understanding matches with what I'm doing in this video, it doesn't have to be perfect or exactly the same. But if it's pretty close, you can feel comfortable that you're in a good spot with this chapter. So let's dive in. The story starts like this. You have Apud Romanos, Caesar erat Maximus Dux. So you're saying among the Romans, Caesar was the greatest, right? The Maximus Dux, the greatest leader, the greatest general. And this is talking about Julius Caesar, right? The famous Roman general and later on leader of the Republic, right? He brings it down. Then you have Caesar et legiones in Gallia et Britannia pugnaban. So Caesar and his legions, right? His is kind of the implied word here. So Caesar and his legions, and again, legiones, right? Legio is a third declension noun. Practice that. Actually, Caesar is as well, right? His name. Where you're saying Caesar and his legions, pugnabant, they fought, right? And again, it's imperfect because it's implying that sort of continuous action in the past. They were constantly fighting, you might think. In Gallia, which is Gaul, sort of modern day France, is kind of usually where we peg it, and Britannia and Britain, right? In legione est magnus numerus militum. So in the legion, right, or in a legion, you might say, there is a big number, a magnus numerus, a big number of soldiers, right? There's your genitive, a big number of soldiers. It means there's a lot of soldiers, thousands of them in a legion, right? And Caesar would go to battle or go to war with multiple different legions. Then you have bello Helvetico, multi legiones cum Caesare era. So in the Bello Helvetico, in the Helvetian War, right? It's sometimes called the Helvetian campaign. It's the beginning of the Gallic Wars, right? Caesar's famous battle or set of battles, the wars that he fought and he wrote about. You have multi legiones, many legions. Errant, there were many legions, you could say, cum Caesare, with Caesar, right? So it's saying in each legion, there's a big number of soldiers, literally thousands of soldiers, and there were many legions with him. So you're talking about tens of thousands of men, of troops going with Caesar in these wars. Then you have decima legio, et in bello et in pace Caesari cara era. So the 10th legion, this is his famous one, the decima legio, right? The 10th legion. Then you have et. These are called correlatives again. So you have both and is how they translate. It's both something and something. So here you're saying both in bello, in war, and in pace, in peace, right? So both in war and peace, the 10th legion erat cara, it was dear, Caesare, to Caesar. Remember, cara, dear, is one of those special adjectives that takes dative because you're dear to someone. So the 10th legion in particular was dear to Caesar. Then you have virtus decimae legiones erat magna. So the virtus, the virtue, the manliness, you might say, of the 10th legion, decimae legiones, right, of the 10th legion, genitive, was great, right? They are his sort of his best legion, right? His best troops, his bravest troops. That's what it's getting at here. Then you have hieme, Caesaris, legiones in hibernis maneban. So in the winter, right, hieme, right, in the winter time, legiones, Caesaris, the legions of Caesar, right? They manebant, they were staying, or they stayed, you might say, in hibernis, in winter quarters. So you can see the word for winter here and winter quarters are related to each other. But saying in the wintertime, they don't fight. They stay in their winter quarters, whether that's in a town or maybe a fort they build, but they don't fight in the wintertime, right? It's cold, possibly snowing. You're not going to go out and fight. But aestate, this is kind of the opposite of hieme, right? So in the summertime, aestate, Caesar legiones cogebat et bellum cum Gallis gerebat. So in the summer, Caesar, right, there's your subject, Caesar, cogebat, he collected, right, he was collecting or collected the legiones, the legions. And again, the idea of collecting is because you'd spread them out. So just as a side note, you want to look this up, right? Sort of the military history of Rome. But if you have tens of thousands of men, you can't just keep them in one place, right? It'd be very hard to feed them. So Caesar would pretty routinely spread them out into different parts of Gaul or Roman territory near different towns where they could be supplied without kind of overloading or overburdening the local economy. Okay, so he would collect his legions, and Gerebat, he was waging war, bellum. Remember, bellum gerebat means to wage war, or in this case, he was waging war, cum Gallis, with the Gauls. So again, it's saying in the summertime, he collected his legions and he waged war with the Gauls, or on the Gauls, you might say. Okay? Then you have Saipe imperator militesque triumphum ageban. So often the imperator, the commander, and the soldiers, the milites, they agebant triumphum, they celebrated or they held a triumph. Right? We've kind of seen that before. The triumph is the military parade for victory. Then you have multitudo hominum in Romae vias properabat. So you're saying the multitude, or a multitude, a crowd of people, hominum, of people, they hastened into the vias. And you can see here in vias is accusative. So it's saying they kind of hustled or hastened into the roads. Romae here is genitive, of Rome. So in a military triumph, the city of Rome would be prepared. You'd have a military parade go through showing all the spoils of war, prisoners, all these things, and the crowd would come see this and cheer them on. Okay. Then you have per forum Romanum victor milites spolia venieba. So through the Roman forum, the victor, the conqueror, right, the winner, the soldiers, and again, victor really means like the commander, the victor, meaning the victorious commander, the milites, the soldiers, and the spolia, the spoils of war, venieba, they came, right, they were coming through the Roman forum. So it's talking about the procession, the military parade through the forum. Clamores multitudinis erat magni. So the shouts, the clamores, right, of the crowd, multitudinous, it's genitive singular, of the crowd, was great, or were great rather. Erant is plural. It's talking about the shouts. You're saying the shouts were magni, they were great, right? The shouts of the crowd. Spectaculum multitudinem laetam delectabat. So the spectacle, and again, here it's a neuter word, right? The ending is neuter singular. It's going with delectabat. So the spectacle delighted, right, or was delighting, you could say. The multitudinem laetam. Laetam is describing multitudinem, right, the crowd. So you're saying the spectacle delighted the happy crowd, right? They're all excited to see this. So again, it's just giving you a little bit of insight into how a military triumph worked, right? And it's relating it back to Julius Caesar and his legions. Then we end with this. You have triumphus erat mos antiquus, right? So a triumph, or the triumph, you could say, was an ancient custom, a mos antiquus, right? An ancient custom is a good way to do it. Then you have hodie, today, quoque vestigia moris antiqui videmus, nam in viis nostris Pompae Magnae Videntur. So you're saying today also, or today too, or maybe even today even, you might say, videmus, we see, right? And again, videre is a second conjugation verb, so videmus is just present tense, we see, right? Vestigia. Now, vestigia is neuter plural. It has to be the direct object here because it wouldn't fit as the subject of the sentence, right? The traces aren't seeing anything. It's saying we see the traces. Then you have moris antiqui. Of the ancient custom. Now, it's just said that the ancient custom was the triumph. So it's talking about the triumph here. So it's saying today we still, or we also see the traces of the ancient custom, meaning of the Roman triumph. Nam means for, right? For Pompae Magnae, right? Great parades, you might say, pompai, right? Great parades are seen, videntur. So it's the same verb as videmus. It's the verb videre, to see, but here we have present passive. So you're saying great parades are seen in vis nostris, in our streets, right? In our roads. So it's talking about, we don't really do, and now you have to understand this book was written in the 1930s and we did do more military parades, right? But we don't really so much do military parades anymore, but we still have parades for things like 4th of July, right? Things like that. That's what it's getting at. That idea of having a procession and a parade is sort of a remnant of the ancient Roman triumph. And again, back in the day in the US, there would be military parades, which would kind of mimic a Roman triumph. Not so much anymore, but still, you can see kind of vestigia, literally traces of it. The textbook is telling you. So again, it's just trying to make a modern connection between ancient Roman life and our own, right? The different cultures, and you can see traces of it when you're dealing with the Roman triumph. So hopefully this made sense. Again, this is the second story in chapter 24, so it should be a nice review of the different grammar and the vocab you've seen. But if you have any questions at all or anything that you're stuck on, put it in the comments below. I'm happy to help you out however I can. Otherwise, just keep practicing it, keep reading it. I say it in a lot of these videos, the best way to do this is to do the read and reread method. So you want to read the story, write down any problem areas you have, go look up those problem areas, whether it's grammar, vocab, whatever it might be, and then keep reading the story 2, 3 times, however many times you need to, until you can do this without needing a vocabulary list, right, a dictionary, or any grammar help. If you can hit that point where you can read this pretty easily without needing any help, you know you've got it down and you're ready to move on. Good luck.